Prep School presents No Prep Nature Science, Bears of North America. The bear is at a prominent place in human history, be it either dangerous predator or comical entertainer. In fact, the bear-human relationship goes back thousands of years to a time when they were hunted regularly for food and hides used to keep warm. The bears depicted in the Shavu Cave were not the bears of today. They were prehistoric beasts called cave bears. They were massive compared to bears of today, and males could weigh up to 1,500 pounds. That's as big as a very large horse. What we still don't know, and will likely never know, is what the relationship was between bears and humans. Were humans the prey or the bears? Were they worshipped, hunted, feared, all of the above? We'll never know. Bears have had such an influence over human culture that two of the most recognizable constellations are named after them. Ursa is a Latin word for bear, and Ursa Major and Minor are the large and small bears, respectively. Inside Ursa Major is the Big Dipper, and inside Ursa Minor is the Little Dipper. One cool thing about finding the Big and Little Dippers in the sky is that you can find the North Star too, or vice versa. If you can find the North Star, you can find both the Big and Little Dippers. The North Star is called Polaris. Polaris is the last star in the Little Dipper's handle. And the upper right star in the Big Dipper's dipper points to Polaris. Bears have always been dangerous to humans because they are near the top of the food chain. They also share a habitat with humans. Each type of bear will live in a specific type of habitat, but most often, bears like mountain forests and running water. These are North American black bears, common in the United States and Canada. They can also be found in some parts of Mexico. A male bear is called a boar, a female bear is called a sow, and a baby bear is called a cub. If you have a bunch of bears together, which isn't common, they are called a sleuth or sloth. Bears are territorial, which means they like their space. This is why you don't normally find them in groups. They might get together to fish on a river, but they keep their distance from each other then too. There are several recognized species of bears in the world, including the American black bear, the Asiatic black bear, the brown bear, the giant panda, the sloth bear, the sun bear, and the polar bear. Only the species highlighted in red are found in North America. Check out the anatomy of a bear. Look closely at the diagram. You're going to see it again later. The American black bear lives all over North America, mostly in Alaska and Canada, but also in many mountainous areas as well, such as Colorado, Pennsylvania, California, Oregon, Washington, Montana, Wyoming, and New York. Bear attacks on humans are not common, and black bears attack humans less often than do grizzly bears, but all bears should be considered dangerous at all times. The American black bear is the smallest bear in North America and is also the most common. Black bears have broad skulls with narrow muzzles that look pointier on females as compared to males. Both the front and back claws are short and rounded and are able to perform many tasks such as opening doors and screw-top jars. They are also very sharp. Compared to a brown bear, the American black bear has three characteristics that set it apart. For one, it has no shoulder hump, it has a clean face, and has short claws. The size of the American black bear will vary according to age and sex, with males being larger than females and full-grown adults larger than juveniles. A typical adult male will weigh about 500 pounds, while a female will only weigh about 200 pounds. The largest wild black bear recorded was from Canada and weighed approximately 1,100 pounds. That's twice the size of an average black bear. Black bears have great physical strength and can turn over rocks weighing as much as 300 pounds. They can run very fast, up to 25 to 35 miles per hour, so don't count on outrunning a black bear in the wild. They can also climb trees, learn quickly, and have good eyesight. All black bears are omnivores, which means they eat both plants, such as berries, roots, bulbs, nuts, and young shoots, as well as animals such as fish, insects, deer fawns, and elk calves in certain areas. The black bear has soft, thick fur that can be any shade of brown and in some cases even white, blonde, cinnamon, or blue. Colors vary according to the location as listed below. The American black bear has 8 different sounds which it uses during certain behaviors. For example, the black bear will growl, woof, snort, bellow, and roar when aggressive. When content, a black bear will mumble and squeak and pant. In order to mark territory and show dominance, black bears will slash tree trunks with their claws. The higher up the tree trunk the claw mark appears, the more dominant the bear who made it will be. Sows will give birth to their first cubs in January or February when they are about 3 to 5 years old. The sow is pregnant for about 8.5 months and will normally give birth to 2 cubs per litter. Cubs will weigh less than 1 pound when born and will only be about 8 inches long. They grow quickly, though, and will gain weight rapidly. By the time they are 6 months old, they will weigh about 50 pounds. American black bears will live about 18 years in the wild, but have been known to live up to 44 years in captivity. During the winter, American black bears will go through a form of hibernation. This involves slowing down their heart rate and lowering their body temperature to conserve energy. During hibernation, American black bears will curl up into a tight ball with their heads between their front paws and turn their backs to the cold. In October, the bears will enter their dens, often a hole, cave, or other sheltered area, and sleep for about 7 months. In order to be able to survive over the winter, bears must put on large amounts of weight, up to 30 pounds a week during the summer. Females will hibernate away much of their pregnancy and will only awake briefly as the cubs are born, then return to sleep as they nurse and grow until spring. The Asiatic black bear is similar to the American version, except it lives in China, Russia, Korea, and some islands of Japan. The Asiatic bears are also prone to walking on 2 legs and have been known to walk this way for a quarter mile or more. Asiatic black bears all have a yellow bib on their chests. Some American black bears can have this too, but not many. Brown bear is a catch-all term used to describe many different types of bears that all share one common characteristic: brown fur. These bears live across much of North America, Europe, and Asia. They are significantly larger than black bears, with large mature males weighing up to 800 pounds and standing 4 feet at the shoulder. The grizzly bear is the most common brown bear in North America, and they differ from black bears in some significant ways. Brown bears have very large and curved claws, with the front claws being longer than the back ones. Brown bear claws are blunt as compared to the sharp claws of the black bear. The head of a brown bear is massive, as are the teeth. They also have a shoulder hump, and that's one of the ways you can tell the difference between a brown bear and a black bear. The grizzly bear is one type of brown bear that lives all over western Canada, Alaska, and parts of the Rocky Mountains in the continental U.S., such as areas in the Bitterroot Mountain areas of Idaho and western Montana. These bears, like most, are solitary animals, which only come together for mating and raising cubs. In coastal areas, grizzlies will often gather near streams to fish, but they do not form family groups like a pack or herd animals. Unlike the smaller black bear, grizzlies are large and are known to eat mammals such as moose, deer, sheep, elk, bison, caribou, and even the black bear. They also enjoy catching fish, such as salmon and trout and bass from rivers, and are excellent fisher bears. Grizzlies will also take food left behind from other large carnivores, such as wolves and mountain lions. This left behind food is called carrion. Most of the time, brown bears are omnivores and rely heavily on berries, roots, pine nuts, tubers, grasses, and insects for the bulk of their diet. Over the summer, bears must gain weight in order to prepare for hibernation and will put on up to 400 pounds. Grizzlies will typically prepare their dens after the first snowfall to hide it from curious eyes and prefer to be at an elevation of about 6,000 feet on the north side of a mountain. These bears do not appear to be as efficient at hibernation as the black bear, and they tend to wake and move around more. If food is plentiful, grizzlies will skip hibernation altogether. Grizzly bears do not reproduce as efficiently as many other bears because they mature late. They too give birth over the winter hibernation, and the mother will go back to sleep as the cubs nurse and grow until spring. They typically have 2 cubs, but triplets are not unheard of. Like the black bear cubs, grizzly cubs will require a lot of motherly attention in order to grow up and take care of themselves. These cubs will stay with their mother for 2 or 3 years. They have a lot to learn about survival, and grizzly moms are happy to have them. When they do leave, they will often stay close to her range for several years. When the gray wolf was reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park in the late 1990s, the grizzly bear had a partner as the keystone species in the park. Although grizzly bears and gray wolves have little in common, they still have to compete for food, and that means that some resources might become scarce. Keystone means the animals have a large effect on the environment relative to the number of animals present. Since the wolves hunt in a pack, they are generally more efficient at taking down large kills. This leaves an open invitation for the keen-smelling grizzly to come in and try and steal the carcass. The wolves will take turns distracting the bear so that each member of the pack can eat. But even the largest pack of wolves can be overtaken by a single massive grizzly bear. Doug Smith, the Yellowstone Wolf Project leader, says he watched as one bear held 24 wolves at bay at a carcass. The wolves had taken down a bull elk, but the bear took over the meal. Another time, he says, there were 10 wolves and 4 bears on a wolf kill. The biggest bear controlled the situation. All the wolves and the other 3 bears sat around and waited for their turn. Grizzly bears are considered to be aggressive. This behavior is natural and comes from them being too large to escape danger by climbing trees or running away. To compensate for this, the bears have learned to stand and defend themselves rather than turn and run. They normally avoid contact with people, but will attack if they are disturbed with cubs or while eating. All states have strict hunting laws in the U.S. for bears, but the grizzly even more so because it is a protected species under both U.S. and Canadian law. In Yellowstone, the grizzly population had grown enough by 2006 that they were no longer considered endangered. But a judge contradicted the opinions of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and reinstated the protective status. His reasoning for contradicting the opinion of the wildlife experts was due to the questionable nature of a species of pine tree, the whitebark pine, which provides the grizzly bear with nuts as it fattens up for the winter. The large seeds or nuts of whitebark pine are a high-energy food rich in fats, carbohydrates, and protein. This makes them a sought-after resource for bears fattening up in the fall before denning. But obtaining seeds is a challenge because whitebark pine cones do not split open to scatter seeds when they mature. And since mature grizzly bears are poor tree climbers, they must rely on red squirrels to harvest the seeds for them. This judge felt that this fact put the grizzlies in a precarious position from year to year, and thus they should remain protected. There are many species of brown bears besides the grizzly, and the largest is the Kodiak bear. This brown bear lives in Alaska along the western coast and is significantly larger than the grizzly at a whopping 1,200 pounds, although 800 is more the average. A large Kodiak bear is comparable to the polar bear in size and is counted as one of the world's largest land predators. The polar bear is the largest land predator on Earth and stands about 5 feet at the shoulder, 7 to 9 feet when standing on 2 legs, is 8 to 9 feet long, and a mature male can weigh as much as 1,500 pounds. Adult females are about half the size of the males. The polar bear is different from other species of bears in several ways. They are mainly carnivores, not omnivores. Only the pregnant females will hibernate. They only live in the far northern hemisphere. Their main diet is ringed and bearded seals. They can be aggressive and will hunt and eat humans. Polar bears are highly identifiable by their large stature and white coat, which stays this color year-round in contrast to other Arctic animals, which shed and grow a new darker coat for summer. The polar bear's claws are short and stocky in contrast to the black and grizzly bears, and the pads of the feet have bumps on them called papillae. These are thought to help them with traction on the slippery ice. The polar bear's habitat consists of extremely cold land and sea conditions. It is in the water or out on the ice floes so much of the time that it is considered a land and sea mammal. In order to survive these conditions, the polar bear is well insulated with a 4-inch layer of fat around its body. In fact, they are so well insulated against the cold that their bodies will overheat if the temperature rises above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Another cool factoid is that the thick insulation also makes them almost invisible under infrared photography, which is a photography technique that takes pictures of body heat. The polar bear has an exceptional sense of smell and can hunt from long distances. In fact, this giant white bear can detect a seal from 1 mile away and buried beneath 3 feet of snow. While other species of bears spend a good amount of time in the water and are typically able to swim, the polar bear is an excellent swimmer and has been known to swim in the open ocean, sighted as far away from land as 200 miles. A hunting polar bear is usually on the ice waiting for a seal's head to emerge for air. This method is called still hunting. Polar bears rarely catch their prey on land or in the open water. The diet of mature and growing bears will differ slightly. Older bears will tend to eat only the blubber layer of fat on the seals, while younger, growing bears will prefer the protein-rich meat as well as the calorie-rich fat. The adult polar bear is an exceptional hunter, and besides seals, they can also kill walruses and beluga whales if the right opportunity arises. When the ice melts in the summer, the polar bears will stop eating for several months. It is difficult for the polar bear to catch prey on land because it overheats quickly, and most land animals can outrun them. This fasting is unique in nature because the polar bear does not hibernate to induce it. If they happen upon a kill from a wolf pack, they will scavenge the food, but this cannot be counted on in the sparse eating months of July through September. If a human population is nearby, the polar bear will be drawn to the garbage and are not very smart when it comes to what is and is not edible. In fact, so many bears were being hurt from eating inedible things such as styrofoam and car batteries that the dump in Churchill, Manitoba, Canada had to close in order to protect them. Never feed a bear. No matter how forlorn it looks, feeding bears is the #1 cause of aggressive behavior, and this leads to them being killed by local police or wildlife officials. Remember, a fed bear is a dead bear. Polar bears are curious, playful, and affectionate to each other on occasion, even though they lead solitary lives most of the time. The only exception to this solitary behavior is when a female is raising cubs. The pregnant female is the only member of the polar bear family which hibernates. The mating season occurs in early spring, but the cubs will not begin to grow inside the mother until late summer, so she can gain up to 450 pounds, nearly doubling her regular body weight. This extra weight allows her to hibernate until the cubs are born. The female polar bear hibernation does not really meet the strict definition of the word, as she does not really sleep continuously, and her body temperature does not drop. Only her slowed heart rate and drowsiness allow us to describe this behavior as hibernation. Hibernation occurs in a maternity den that is typically dug into a snowdrift, and the cubs are born from November through February. Like other bears, they are small and immature, requiring many weeks of nursing fat-rich milk to be large enough to leave the den and allow the mother to break her fast, which can be as long as 8 months, and graze on some nearby plants. After a couple of weeks, the cubs will begin to walk back towards the ice with their mother so she can teach them to hunt for seals and provide them with a protein-rich diet. If you see a bear, don't approach it. If it sees you, identify yourself and let it know you are human. Then determine what kind of bear it is. Remember the differences between black and grizzly bears? If you know what kind of bear it is, you'll know how to act towards it. American black bears can be distinguished from brown bears by their smaller size, their shorter claws, and the lack of a shoulder hump. If you are in the presence of a bear, your best strategy is to determine the intention of the bear. If it is walking away from you, leave it alone. The number one rule in bear safety is to never get close to a bear unless you are intentionally hunting it and have a permit and a license to do so. Black and grizzly bears love to be near streams for a fresh source of fish, so be especially careful there. If a bear approaches you, do not scream or run or make sudden motions. You cannot outrun a bear, and screaming may increase the danger of the situation. Bear repellents only work at such close range that depending on them could endanger you. Horns are unproven in their effectiveness. High-pitched noises can arouse curiosity or anger in bears. Bears are curious and may want to check you out. Try to avoid direct eye contact, which a bear may see as a threat. Generally, if you just stand your ground, the bear will soon leave. Wild bears rarely attack unless threatened or provoked. Talking in low, soothing tones may help keep you calm. Don't panic. If a bear approaches you very quickly, drop a hat or a bandana and move away without running. The bear may stop to examine what you have dropped, distracting it from you. If a black bear attacks you, fight back with rocks, sticks, equipment, or your bare hands if nothing else is available. Aim for the bear's eyes and nose. People used to feed bears along the road in parks, but this caused the bears to become aggressive. If a grizzly bear attacks you, drop into a cannonball position with neck and face between the knees. If the bear takes you out of this position, try to resume it. Usually the bear will see that you are not a threat and will leave you alone. Do not get aggressive with a grizzly bear. They almost always win that fight.